Okay, so we have just given this a spray of this stuff. All right, so this is literally Hycote. It's a plastic primer. Really, really easy to use. That's the great thing about these things. But don't ever use them in your filter, because honestly, this will flood and fill. The biggest thing with these automotive and general household cans is that the nozzle isn't really designed for doing fine details, because you're easily going to flood it. But, you know, from a distance, you can just whack this down, gently build it up. Don't be in there close, flooding it on, because literally you will lose all that detail. But you can see now she is looking grey. And the great thing is that suddenly you get that transformation. What happens is that all of a sudden you've got this situation where all the details start to pop and things. Now, I have been around, and you might see just back here, we've done a little bit of filler work just down in here. I had a few gaps, so I've come in with a little bit of grey filler, and for that we just use the old AK's plastic putty. All right, or modelling grey putty. So we just popped a little bit just down in there. Now, I'm aware that obviously we've got piping is going to go in those holes, but the holes are way too big. And I thought it'd just be easier to do it now than it would be afterwards. As you can see, I haven't done the canopy yet, but what we have done is we've now glued the gun on the top properly, and we've put the little bit underneath it as well. All right, so that's down in there. To be honest, with my seat problem and all the rest of it, I've elected now, as you can see, to remove the seat itself off the base. So we've got the back of it, and when this guy sat in here, he's perfectly scaled and he fits, he would do if he sits up a little bit. He sits absolutely fine in here and all the rest of it, and now his arms reach to where they should do. So obviously when we come in now and we fit his instrument panel in, he looks pretty much to scale. The great thing as well is, we pop this on the top, he fits in and he's even got a little bit of clearance on his head. Whereas before, with the seat in place on the bottom, he didn't. And from our point of view, as we're going to be seeing with him in literally like this, no one's ever going to see, all right? So that's all pretty good. So with all of that said, one thing to do now is we can work actually on this cockpit area, because what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to mask the inside of this all off completely, and then we will come along and temporarily attach this on the top here like that. So when we do all the painting work, it's fine. So we can actually take care of this in here. So what this is going to get is a coat of flat black right the way over absolutely everything. And then we're going to come in with dry brushing and detailing. One area is, and you might notice, we've got these holes in all of this down in here. Now this is technically for fibre optic cables to come through, because that's what it's designed to do. As is the little instrument panel down in here. It should have literally fibre optic lights coming behind to have it all lit up and flashing and all the rest of it. Well, we're not worried about that, so I've got a little bit of plasticard. All right, and originally I was going to use acetate, but really it's just it's a waste of time. So we're going to glue this in the back here in place, just like that. So we'll get those installed onto it, and again it's a nice good fit. And then what we can actually do is we're going to come in and pre-paint these areas all in here, then we'll put on some clear colours on the top as well. So we'll just come in with some clear gloss or some PVA glue to give them that glassy look. All the other details we will dry brush and it will bring to life, as we will do all the back of it. To be honest, exactly the same way we did on the little mini me version just down in here. So again, when you look at the instrument panel, you can see it's a lot different to what this one is. All right, but we can take a lot of the cues from this one right the way through. All right, so all we did with this, exactly the same thing. We came in down in here for visual effect and just came in and put the black down, and then we dry brushed it with some buffables over the top to give it that sort of metal effect, and then we went through and picked out some colors. That's exactly what we're going to do down in here as well. So we're just taking all the cues really from the painting and weathering from this particular guy. All right, so again, should be good. So we're going to do that next, but again, I'm in two minds to actually put the head on. There's a big part of me that wants to glue this on and be done with it and all the rest of it, and then it's fine. But there's another part that's actually turning around and saying, look, keep them separate, because we can work on this a lot easier than we can with this. And also, although I'm happy this is a nice structurally good join on here now, it just worries me a lot about it getting a shock or a knock or something else like that. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is coming into a situation where this will be one of the last areas on. Also, all the plumbing and piping we can do, we can overstretch them and then cut them to the exact length. So when we come in and put this in here, it'll be a perfect fit and it'll all join all the way through. Another little trick, obviously, we can see on here is obviously we've got all this piping in the top here coming in, fits really nice and flush, and we want that to be as well. So we can actually just trim it back as we go to get it to the right length as we're coming back with these on both of them. All right, so that's what we want to do, because obviously we've got wiring top and bottom to go through. The bottom ones all fold up and don't actually enter the actual forward fuselage here. The top ones all come right into it. So again, we want to get those in there as well if we can. So again, at the moment, we're just sort of playing around with these little areas. So what we're going to do up next, we're going to get this painted black, which we'll do off camera because it's just a quite forward, paint it black and we're done. I'll get this plasticard stuck up in here. All right, then we're going to come through and we're going to then paint up these little panels. Then we can put some clear over it, and then obviously a little bit more detail painting throughout the rest of it, and we can really start to bring it to life. And at the same time, well, at some point, I probably won't do him yet because I'll do him as a little bit separate. We're going to paint this little guy up as well. All right, so then he's looking the part as we go through with this particular build. Okay, so we put down a coat of Tamiya's XF-85, which is just the old flat black or rubber black. Really like this colour because it's not just a really dark black. As you can see, it's got a nice shadow effect to it and everything straight off the bat. So that's down in there like that. We've also done that instrument panel. So we did that little bit of black plasticard, white plasticard, and then we painted yellow, a little bit of a funny metallic colour down there I've got kicking around and on there, and then again the rest of them we will do by hand right the way over. To start off with, what we want to do is give it a metallic scrub. So metallic scrub for me is my usual favourite way of doing this, and that is to use a brush that's had on it a little bit of the actual metallizer buff boards. You could use anything, a dry brush, but this stuff is just really good for it. So it's 214. So this brush has had, in the past, it's dried on there and all the rest of it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start on the fascia and we're just going to very lightly keep working at it. What this will do, or what I like about this, one, it gives it a nice metal look to everything because obviously it's going to pick out all the details and give it a nice metal look by polishing onto it, as you can see, just like that. But also it obviously gives everything a nice sort of shine to it. So you get a proper look to all the details. Now you've got to come in from all the angles, and then straight away with just a little rub like that, we've got that type of effect. And that's exactly what we want on a sci-fi area. Again, we've got these details that have been printed in here during 3D printing. So they're going to get a nice brush, and obviously all the angles will, but also the areas on top as well. That way everything has a weighted look to it, and it has that nice sort of, you know, solid feel, heavy, as if it is metal. And again, you get this nice sheen to it as well. And again, you catch it in the light, works very, very well with all of it. And again, that's the type of effect I like. You might be different, but honestly, I think it's really hard to beat from a dry brushing point of view, how you can make suddenly all details and things like that really pop, and areas as well. So it doesn't just do dry brushing and leave everywhere off. It gives a nice metallic type sheen to it, which again for sci-fi stuff like this I think is just absolutely epic. So you can see just a quick brush like that already, we're starting to get all these details pop in, and again you can obviously get this to highlight the details and to show it, but also the great thing about this is that it just gives everything a nice weighted look to it. And obviously for starfighters and sci-fi it's brilliant. Obviously for armor, stuff like that, anything you want to have a look at, you know, a bit of weight and things like that, this is absolutely epic. All right, so that's down in there as well. We've got the seat, so we're going to give that a rub over. Again, we've got a pilot in here, we're not going to see much of the seat, so it's really just to give an effect of. And again, you can keep buffing this as long as you like, and you'll make things go proper shiny. You can probably see these knobs here and lumps and bumps getting proper chromy, because the more you go over this, the more you polish it, the more it will have that nice metallic sort of scrub to it as well. And again, you can do a little bit on the floor, just get a little bit of an effect going on down in there, nothing too much. All right, so again, still a little bit wet on the floor as I've just found out, so we just check we haven't got any black on our metallic. And that's what we don't want to do, is obviously lose the metallic by putting black onto it. But there we go. So that's really straightforward. We've also done down in here the roof, and obviously we've done the roof lining. So again, gives it a nice metal scrub. So now when we pop this in, straight away without adding any colour in here so much, but it's now got a real sci-fi look to it without actually doing anything. You know, it's not like we've actually been in here and he made any big changes, but straight off the bat though, it just gives detail. Now what we can do is we can come along and we can put in colours and various things down into this one. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use in our favour some of these things. So some of these holes in here we can put colour in and red and things like that, which will then fill the gap and take it if you wanted to. If they felt it was a little bit too much, obviously you could actually put something behind, just like we've done down in there in with the cockpit. All right, but I'm going to put some dials in, some various bits and pieces. We're not going to use sort of, you know, any sort of thing of a such. We're just going to add colour to it, because to be honest, we're going to have ours buttoned up, so we're not going to see in here. We just want that glancing thing. You can see some of the details down in here. So again, you can use Posca pens, which are absolutely great for this. So we've got a nice greeny colour down in here. We just wake these up. Always give these a really, really good shake and test them out on a bit of paper before you start coming in using them, or if you have got a bit of kitchen roll, something else like that, just to get the pen started, just like this. And then we can come in with these and we can say, right, okay, well this one here is going to be green, and again we can just come in and we can make that one green. And again, you've got various colours. So down in here we've got everything, including white, because white's a great colour, but we've got metal colours as well. I'll get them all loose, there we go. But make sure these get a really, really good mix, otherwise they tend to come out really watery. So again, just down in here, we'll get this one going. Again, test its colour, making sure it is doing. Very difficult to see on here, don't think it even is. There we go, now it's coming through. And again, we can do these in white, can do two in white. And again, just very, very simple ways of doing this, of getting them come together. The only one I don't particularly like is the red, because I find the red is a funny old colour, but we have got other ones as well down in their range. We've got some real sci-fi type colours, and we've got blues down in here, so we're going to grab a bit of the blue. The red is just a little bit pink, so you could use it of course, but it is a little bit pinky colour, so just be careful with that one. It's not like a deep red. I prefer, if I'm honest, to use other colours, such as Sharpies and things like that for it. Just get this one going. It's a little bit slow to wake up. Again, make sure you give them a good old shake. Get them coming through. There we go. And again, just down in here, I'll tell you what we'll do. This one, blue. So again, you can just come in and put some of these in. And again, some of the other colours we'll do in red and some other things down in there, just like that, right the way across it. All right. Again, with these ones down in here being holes, you've got various options that you can do it down in there. So again, some of these I'll come in with a little bit of PVA glue, perhaps just fill the hole, give it a dome to it, and then you can come in and obviously paint right over the top of them, so forth and so on. All right. So again, just take your time with it, have a little bit of fun. And again, if you want to use references and that, or as I will probably do, a little bit of whiffery down in there, all right, of exactly what colours should go where. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the cockpit done. I didn't want to light it up like an actual disco or anything else like that. It's just for an effect, if you like, just like that. And by the time we get our little guy painted up and put in, I think it'll be really enough detail that we need in there right the way through. All right. The other thing as well, as you can see, we've got the instrument panel done. So I put in here just a few drops of crystal clear. So literally just dropped it in and they are going off now. And also you can, I don't know, this little one here, red one's got it. It just gives a little bit of a shine to the switches and the things like that. And then hopefully when these go clear again, you'll see the yellow, you'll see that nice blue colour. And up here we've got those dials as well. So again, those are in there. So once it all comes in and it is clear, we've now got just a basic, but I think perfectly practical cockpit in there. And again, by the time you pop the roof on, you can't really see too much that's going on here anyway, but you sort of get the gist of it all just like that. And again, by the time our little man fits in here as well, so we get him in there, as you can see, there's not going to be a great deal of room for everything that's on there. All right, so I think that's probably about as far as if we want to go with this one. Okay, so that's looking pretty darn good there now. Again, depending on what unit we're doing, obviously the canopy, so what we'll end up doing is masking off the insides of this completely, then we'll attach it on the top to our basically, you know, work as a mask. This is still a soft fit on the top. All right, so it's masked off. Temporary glue this down with a little bit of PVA glue just to hold it in place, and then obviously we can spray the entire rest of this and weather and do all the bits and pieces. And then one of the last jobs we'll do, take this off. This will give us a nice clean edge all the way around on there, and then what we can do is we can then paint the top of the canopy whatever colour particular unit we're doing. So down in here we've got gold unit, but as you know, we've got this sort of blue colour on the top here and the blue banding around here. I'm not too sure, to be honest, what markings we're going to go for yet. I've got it in my head, and then my heart says I want to do identical and do a gold leader just like that one, so I can marry them up. So obviously we'll have two just different scales. I think that looked quite cool, and obviously we've used this one for a lot of inspiration on this little bit of the build as well. All right, anyway, that's the cockpit section done. As for the figure painter, as you well know, I am no means a figure painter whatsoever, so I do my standard as I did to the crew for the 72nd scale one, and that'll just be a case of orange right the way through, and then we'll pick out the white, and then we'll use dry brushing and a quick wash just to give him some features and all the rest of it. Again, he's going to be hidden away in here. We're not going to really see it. Last up on this, I'm still undecided about what to do about putting some glazing work in this. Now, luckily for us, and if you look at a lot of Star Wars stuff, they are flat panelled canopies. There's a good reason for that. All right. So one of the things though is that obviously if you look at, the reason for that is because it's very easy to work with. You just glue in some clear acetate, and you've got clear windows. All right, but the thing is, the trouble with that was with the models in the real films back in the 70s was getting the reflection off of that said clear glass and things like that showing through. So one way the filmmakers got around that is not to have it. So they didn't actually put it on them. So pretty much all the scale models in there never had any actual clear glass or anything else in those ones. Purely so the camera could then zoom right in at the figure inside and some of the details and not get any problems with reflections of all the lights in that. Because one thing there was a lot of in those days was lights. All right. So again, all that went out the window, CGI. But which way am I going to do it? You know, I could go around and do, as we said before, do two versions. So print another one of these off and do one of them with glass work in there, one of them completely free. All of my other models I've done, sci-fi ones, up to a certain scale, sort of 72nd scale, I don't put any clear parts into them. I always leave them plain. I wanted to do this one as well, but I'm actually thinking because this is a bigger scale, it probably needs it just to give it that scale effect. If it didn't, it's going to be really noticeable. When you look at this one, from a distance, you can't really notice it. It's not really a problem, all right? And even when you're looking at it a little bit closer, it doesn't detract that it doesn't have any glass work into it. But the thing is, on this, when we're going to be looking at it and, moving it around and stuff down in here, we're going to notice it quite a lot. But that's not a problem because I have got some very, very thin sheets, 0.5 mil clear, and I've got 1/4 mil clear acrylic sheets. So what we could do is actually, flip this over to the top side, template it, and then obviously come along and glue those in afterwards if we wanted to do with it. We could even make framing on the inside if you were worried about it showing and stuff like that. So really it's not a massive problem for us to do it. There is some gentle curves into it, but I think we could probably get those to work quite easily. Again, it's one of those ones where I'm probably overthinking this. Don't know which way I'm just going to go with it yet, but these are things I'm thinking about as we're making our way through on this particular build. So next up, what we're going to do is going to mask up the inside of this. So that's just going to be done with a little bit of masking tape right the way around, seal this one up. Temporarily, what we'll do is we will obviously take the figure out, and then obviously we will glue this instrument panel in. So that's down there and fixed, and it's in there like that. And then we'll temporarily glue this guy on the top. Then we can think about actually getting some proper colour onto the ship itself. The back end is over here, just keeping it out of the way. Still waiting for the plastic rod to turn up. I'm going to name and shame the company I bought it from if I don't get it by tomorrow, because it's been over a week and they charge £6.50 postage, which is strong money. But anyway, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt for another 24 hours and then you're going to hear all about it. But no, so anyway, what we can do is we can then obviously get on our base colour onto this one. It's going to be a white mix, my standard, what I call sci-fi mix. It's a little bit of buff goes into white, a couple of little drops of grey in there as well. Just knocks it off of being a pure bright white and into more of a sort of warm white as well. So think of it like a warmish white rather than a brilliant white. That's what we're trying to achieve from it. We get the base base coat onto all of that then. Once that's on there and taken care of, then obviously we can think about picking out individual colours and details right the way through. Then we can obviously, with the paintwork all done onto it, then we can actually think about getting some of the sort of more complex markings on there, as you say, like the colour bands and stuff like that, depending on which unit we're doing. Get those all installed into it. Once that's in, we get the piping work into it. Once the piping work is onto it, then we can think about doing the weathering. Okay, so pushed on, and oh god, that thing weighs a ton. We have the Y-wing looking really good. Now I have a confession. This is one of those ones where it always happens last thing at night. So it was around about 5:30 last night. I was just doing some little things and I thought, right, okay, what we can do is, because we've done the cockpit and we had that black overspray around it, I'm thinking just to make it easier for painting, I'll just literally come along with the aerosol and I'll spray it. So what I did was I masked up obviously the inside of the canopy down in here and everything else like that, and I thought that's great. And then we pop it on top, and then literally we'll just come along and I'll give a couple of little blows from a can right the way over it, just down into my spray booth. What happened was, first blow of air, no problem at all. Second, going on really nice. I thought, oh, one more quite heavy coat just to, you know, right the way over it. And as I went, this flew off and I sprayed. And if you've ever used a can, you will know, especially when you're using these types of cans, literally how quickly they flood an area. So with one brush full, my entire hard work that you saw from yesterday afternoon went nicely under a big thick coat of grey primer and was lost forever. But fear not, fans, because literally I went in this morning and I've redone it again. So I've literally just been in here and had to redo it. But the entire thing, this entire thing was grey. Well, pretty much. It was literally like a line across here. All of this was grey. Dash the lot, completely all gone. So yes, didn't I feel a little bit of a prune? Anyway, so that is now done, and I am still waiting for a certain company who I will name and shame if it doesn't arrive today, because it's literally been over a week, and I wouldn't mind, but they charged over £6 postage to deliver literally a couple of bits of plastic like this, which is horrendous. If it turned up Monday, Tuesday, I would have just thought, yeah, well, it's all right, you know, at least it's here, I just need it. But now we're taking over a week to do a delivery. I will be naming and shaming said UK company who sell this, and to be honest, I think their service is absolutely diabolical. So we will see, seeing as they didn't even bother to send it until Tuesday afternoon and then got picked up by their courier, I'll say that loosely, yesterday. So if I might get it today, but because it's now their courier, who knows we're going to get it, I don't know. But when you pay literally top, well, more than first class postage next day service, and it takes over a week, I think that's taking the mick a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to go on a rant. But this is technically done. As soon as those are in, I'll get those fitted. We can get these engine parts on, because I want to paint it all in one, because I just think it'll be a lot easier than do it in subsections. We've still got the front end is a subsection, but we want to keep that all together. So anyway, with that done, we can turn our attention to Mystic Meg time. So this thing, I tell you what, I'm just being honest here. I didn't pay for this. Karine, obviously from Bravaco, gave me this one as a little bit of a present when she was over recently. And it's one of those ones where, at the time, not being a figure painter or doing anything really detailed, I didn't really get. And I've used it on a couple of little projects now, just for holding stuff as manoeuvring it and all the rest of it. And now I know actually how it works as well. It really is good. So basically what we have is a locking system as well. This gives you the ability to do like 180 degrees or just over 180 degrees, all right? So you can spin it and then it locks. So this is it now. It's actually stuck in this position, and then you give it a bit of a twist and you can unlock it and flick it round. So you not only can you just spin it all the way like this, but there's a quicker way to do front and rears, and that's to do it. But it completely is like frictionless. It sits on this, I assume, no, say I don't know what the actual plastic is, but it's obviously very hard. It's obviously some type of Teflon or, you know, Nomax ring, I think, or something else like that. But this sits on top and then it swivels on that. But also you've got this mode here, which is absolutely great. I think it's great. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you to death with how I'm actually going to paint this, because as you all know, I am by no means a figure painter. That I can do this, that is great. Anyway, so we've got this guy, he's 3D printed. He's a little bit big, I think, for the scale, but he fits the cockpit perfectly, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's one of those weird things. He fits in the cockpit 100% right scale, but I think he is too big for the actual overall scale of it. I think if he was stood next to it. But from our point of view, he's going to be inside, we're not going to see. He's a free file off of the old internet. I will link it obviously in the show notes, so you can see this one and where to get him, all right, and all the rest of it. So for figure painting, as we all know, I've got tons of lacquers, so I don't have much on the way of acrylics, but I have got from back in the day some various ones. So I've got down in here a little bit of light flesh. Now I'm using light flesh in my world purely because I'm thinking that he's going to have a wash in that, so he will go darker naturally. All right, I've got down in here as well, we've got a if I get my glasses on, I'll be able to read the label. Sorry. All right, so we've got some basalt grey, which is a nice sort of mid grey. Got a dark grey, so this is black grey, which is I will probably use for most anything that's black on this, because obviously for the figure. We've got an orange. Originally I was going to do it how I did before with a little bit of X6, but obviously with acrylics and he's a bit bigger, we've got some of the orange down in here as well. And we've got a little bit of the sky grey, so the little harnesses they wear and all the rest of it, we've got some of that. And I can't find my white. I don't know what I've done with my white. I've lost it clearly. So I have got some model air kicking around from back in the day as well. So what I've done is I don't have a wet palette because I'm not posh and I can't afford one. So what I've got is I've got it on a little bit of plastic paper here. All right, so I've been letting these dry off just a little bit. Now my way of figure painting is by no means you shouldn't use it. It's not a tutorial, it's not endorsed or anything else like that. If you want to see a pro do it, watch Matt and other people and stuff like that, because as I say, they all cringe probably when I do this. I'm just going to do this. He's going to be in the cockpit. You're not going to see him. I'm not going to have the canopy open or anything else like that. So he's just going to be an effect that you will see him inside. So that's what I'm going to do with it. Finest brushes will include, I'm probably going to use my freebie DSP ones, which are quite nice, but these are the cheap range ones that they do in the little holders, and they've got interchangeable nibs, so you can actually just change the nibs over, which is quite an interesting way of doing it. And I've got a nice fine one down in there as well, and I've got some other fine brushes for doing this type of thing. So to start with, I'm thinking base colour, we're just going to get the orange on, because it's probably going to take more than one coat all the way through. All right, we're going to be careful not to do his vest, because we don't want to do his vest or anything else like that. All right, so those areas, but I'm thinking just for the minute we can get this on, get it in there, start to let it dry and go through. If you wanted to, obviously you could start with the white first and start with the lightest colours and work your way around and cut in. Again, it's personal choice, whichever way you want to do these. And to be honest with you, I might actually just do that. Let me grab the white, because this white I know for a fact is just a little bit, well, it's model air. It's not going to be the best white. All right, so I'm just going to use a slightly older brush for putting in some of the white here. So again, turn away now anybody who's into figure painting and stuff, because this is the flory way of doing it, not necessarily the right way. Do you know what's even harder? It's doing this so you can see it and I can see it. Right, let's give this a whirl. So I'm just going to basically put all the white bits on first, and then we'll come in afterwards and we're going to cut in and we'll do all the other bits afterwards. So this is that sort of vesty thing they have. That box I think is a slightly different colour. All right, so we'll do that. We'll do like this stand. This is really good. And then what we'll do is I will get these boots painted, and then we'll come together when we in a minute, and we'll see exactly when we put the orange on how that goes. Okay, so as you can see, we have our figure painted ish a bit. To be honest, I've had a few problems. Biggest one overall is getting orange to cover anything, because it's very, very difficult. So this is just, I've got all the base coating down in here. So again, we used a little bit of orange. So I've used model colour orange for his suit. Then we used, to be honest, a bit of Vallejo model air for the white bits. Then we used, as I said, a little bit of the, this is sky grey for his harnesses and things, which again, the trouble I've got is they're not really moulded on. So you don't know exactly where they sort of go and end and all the rest of it. I used a little bit of light flesh for his face. And then to be honest with you, I just thinned a little bit of orange and I painted the visor, if you like. I like it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put clear orange over the top of that as well. All right, just down on there. But basically, he's right there. So he's drying off now. So what he's going to get is a dry brush. All right, so we're just going to give him a dry brush in a very light grey, right the way over, just to look like the fabrics where it's on the creases and done like that. And he'll get a little bit of a enamel wash right the way over, which will then hopefully just pull the highlights and things like that together. To be honest with you, the camera's not playing exactly ball here, because he is not as orange as you see him on the screen. He's a little bit more of a yellowy orange than he is this type of orange. All right, but basically you can dry brush him with pretty much anything you want, but I do like to dry brush with oils. If I can find my dry brushing brush, which seems to have vanished on me. There's my dry brushing brush, there it is. All right, so for this we're just going to grab a little bit of light grey, or again you could use, if you wanted to, like a buff colour. So we've got some down in here. This is the Abtai Lungs 170. So what we do, we'll pop just the tiniest smidge, as you can imagine, on here. So literally hardly anything at all on the brush, because oils are the gift that keeps giving. Then down on here I've got a little palette. All right, so we just give this, and we're going to try and get as much of this off as possible. All right, and then literally we're just going to come in and we're going to dry brush. So to start with, we're going to do the bottom of his boots. All right, then we're just going to work up the sides, and again very light strokes and brushes. Over the face, because that way it'll pick up on the highlights on the chins and all the things like that. And again, the boiler suits were quite worn and quite weathered, so that's what we're trying to get on here as well. So we won't worry about his helmet for the minute. Again, just a little bit between in here. I think there's a tiny bits just down in there. All right, just a little bit down in there, just giving some little highlights. And then last up, what we'll do is we're just going to give him a tiny little oil wash, which I thought I had some oils there, which we don't. Again, we're just talking tiny amounts here. So I'm just going to use the upturned pot. We've got a tiny little bit of enamel fillers. So we're just going to put a couple of drops down in here. And we're going to grab an oldish brush. Oh God, that's on there really tight. Clean up your threads, people. Oh, wow. Okay, bit of trouble getting that one off, but we'll try a different one. Tell you what we'll use. We're just, because we're going to be a little bit awkward. I've got some Starship. No. I can all my colours today. They are literally all over the place and in the wrong place. There we go. A little bit of smoke. So again, tiniest little smidge. That's way too much. So again, that's still too much. Little tiny brushful into this, because we're not going to need much at all. And this is just going to go then naturally into all the shadows, and also any creases and things like that. It will just enhance those. So again, to be honest, I think there's just a little bit too much dry brushing on that. So I'm just going to rub a little bit off. And again, great thing with oils that you can blend and manipulate. So I'm just going to go over it again, just to knock a few little bits of that oil off. And then down in here, just going to come in. And then again, we're just going to dab and pat, and we're going to go over his face as well, so that way it will go into his mouth to give all those shadows and areas. And again, this is just the very quick, if you're doing crew inside. And again, because we've got dry brushing done with oils, with this little guy, we're just very quickly brushing around, because we don't want to reactivate those oils too much. Alright, when those dry back, it will dry back obviously a lot lighter. But of course you could do a couple of coats if you wanted to. But there we go, that's him done on there, just like that. Again, up on his helmet, I say I'm going to put a little bit of clear just on those lenses. So with that, we just use a little bit of clear yellow. So I've got some of the AK clear yellow, this stuff, just to give it, and also it will just reflect a little bit. But again, this is literally because it's an effect. This isn't going to be a figure stood on his own. He's going to be buried inside a cockpit and you're never going to see him. All right. So from our point of view, he should just be exactly what we need. Anyway, that's our little figure done. Once he's dried, I'll take some proper photos of him and you can see those at the end. But anyway, so next up, with those all done, what we can do is turn our attention to actually getting this thing over into the spray booth, making up the white colour that will be the base colour for this one, working out what markings it's going to be in, because to be honest, we're going to need that for masking up purposes. All right, and then obviously once we've got that sorted, we can get all the primary paint onto this one, start to work through with it. Still waiting for the struts to turn up. They haven't turned up at all, so it's been over a week now. Again, it's not email, watch this space. But once those are in, then obviously we can go. So for the moment, because we can't afford to wait any longer, we're actually just going to push on and we'll attach those and paint those all afterwards once it's on. So these bits will be separate and we'll plug in on the end with any luck and just go like that. Not the ideal way of doing it, because again, if there's any joins in that, we're going to have to come back and sand and fill and get those in properly. But hopefully we won't have that problem. So with all that done, as I say, in the next bit, we're going to be cracking on with the main paint job.
I can't maneuver.
Stay on target.
We're too close.
Stay on target.